Thank you. Seated. Next question.
Why don't we put it back up, plaintiff's 1247. Again, this is the CAPS 5. You didn't administer this until you already had Dr. Curry's scores, did you?
That's not correct.
No, you administered it after Dr. Curry made a disclosure, correct?
That's not correct.
You administered it after Dr. Curry had administered hers.
I learned that in late February when she submitted her report, but I had no way of knowing that in December of 2021.
Right. And you didn't make any reference to this in your disclosures until after Dr. Curry made reference to hers, right?
I don't recall the date of the final disclosure or the fourth disclosure.
All right. Can we go to the next page? Let's go to the top of the page. We'll blow that up. Instructions start with standard administration and scoring of the CAPS 5 are essential for producing reliable and valid scores and diagnostic decisions. See that language?
I do.
Right. You don't contend it's standard not to fill out the frequency line.
I think if you're filling it on the right side of the box, I think that's perfectly fine.
All right. So you think it's standard administration to simply leave blanks that are already in the form?
I didn't leave blanks when I needed to find out the frequency of the symptoms.
All right. Let's go down a little bit further. Let's go to administration. It says, number 2, read prompts verbatim, one at a time, and in the order presented, and then has a variety of exceptions. With respect to the childhood trauma notations you made in the margin of the CAPS 5, you didn't read the prompts verbatim, did you?
I read the first prompt. If there was a yes, then I would have made a decision, do I need to administer a whole nother CAPS?
Right. And you ultimately didn't do that. You just simply wrote in the margin of the last one.
Because she wasn't endorsing those symptoms.
Okay. You talked about endorsement of symptoms. Ultimately, what you're looking for with respect to PTSD is functional deficiencies. It's one of the things you look for, right?
Well, with any DSM diagnosis, you're looking for what are the functional impairments as a result of the symptoms that the individual is experiencing.
Okay. So, in fact, if you go to all the way to the end of the form, one of the things that we deal with is impairment in occupational function, right?
Correct.
All right. What's Ms. Hurd's occupation?
She's an actor.
All right. And she had just wrapped a major motion picture, correct?
That's correct.
So you didn't determine that she had an impairment in occupational function. She's still performing at literally the highest level of her profession, correct?
She had a number of PTSD symptoms while she was filming Aquaman 2.
Right.
That interfered with her ability to really organize a lot of resources for herself in order to go forward and film that.
I asked you whether
Production.
she was performing at the highest level of her profession. Yes or no?
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that.
Okay. But did she report to you that she loves to cook?
She loves to cook, yes.
Yeah. Hike?
I don't recall hiking, but
Read?
yep.
Spend time with friends?
If she can, that has been significantly diminished as a result of her PTSD symptoms as a result of this case.
She just had a baby.
She did.
Right? Exercises every day.
The most that I can tell, she does.
Yeah. Completed level 3 sommelier training.
She did.
All right. She did all of these things, and you've made a determination that she is impaired with respect to her occupational functioning.
I made a determination that the symptoms interfere with her functioning. She does these things, but it's not like the symptoms aren't there. She has to continue to work even though she has panic attack, even though she has an intrusive recollection of the trauma, even though she's having heart palpitations and sweaty palms when something comes into her mind. It does not stop her from doing what she needs to do, but it does interfere.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you about another test that you administered, and that one's called the PAI. You know that one?
Yes, I do.
That's the personality assessment inventory.
That's correct.
Why don't we put in front of the witness the PX 1244?
All right. 44.
All right. So, Dr. Hughes, do you recognize PX 1244?
Yes,
And it's a list of critical item endorsements,
correct.
and that's derived from the PAI.
Correct.
And this is the PAI that you gave 9/26/2019.
I don't have the cover sheet in front of me, so
Why don't we scroll down to the bottom, Tom? And there it is.
yep.
There
Thank
it is
you.
down there.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay. Now, critical item I'm going to move this document, PX 1244, into evidence.
Your Honor, I would request.
I'm only going to ask her about this piece.
Well, it's his exhibit. Do you have any objection to his exhibit, which is just the first page? All right, 1244 in evidence.
Okay. So, critical item endorsement. This starts a total of 27 PAI items reflecting serious pathology have very low endorsement rates in normal samples. These items have been termed critical items. You're familiar with that concept?
Yes, I am.
All right. And I just want to ask you about a couple of the critical items. The first one is potential for aggression. This was deemed under your PAI a critical item. It says, sometimes my temper explodes and I completely lose control. How did that potential for aggression bear on your analysis?
Well, there's a few things. Number one, certainly Ms. Hurd reported to me that in her relationship that would happen. Her anger and her affect regulation would become impaired. Number two, you have to look at the total scales where that scale is not elevated, so it would not be a major cause of clinical concern. Number three, she had 4 responses that she could say to this question. Mainly true, very true, mainly true, sometimes true or false. She chose sometimes true. So she's answering honestly about her experience.
So it's sometimes true that sometimes my temper explodes. That's
Correct.
what you're testifying.
Correct.
All right. So you've talked a little bit about this concept called malingering. And there's one here for potential malingering. And this is another one of these critical item endorsements. critical items means that these are serious pathology, right?
Well, as you can see, it says endorsement of these critical items is not in and of itself diagnostic.
No,
So you need to review the content of the item, and that's how you make the determination. Is this something of clinical concern that you need to do more understanding about?
Okay, so this critical item endorsement, this one reads under potential malingering, I think I have 3 or 4 completely different personalities inside of me.
Correct.
And she endorsed that as sometimes true.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's not one elevated malingering scale on the PAI.
Let me ask you about another document. I'm going to mark the document as PX 1248.
$12.48.
1248.
All right, yes, sir.
All right. Can you put up PX 1248 just for the witness? Dr. Hughes, do you recognize this?
Yes.
All right. And these are critical items that were deduced on the TSI-2 critical items list.
Correct.
And what's a 0 mean?
Means that she scored a 0 on that item. She said it's not something that's relevant for her at the time frame that the test was administered.
And these are all self-reports, right?
Correct.
And so she scored a 0 on doing something violent because you were so upset.
Correct.
See that language? You knew Ms. Hurd to do violent things when she's upset.
This test specifies how often have you had these symptoms in the last 6 months?
Just in the last 6 months.
Correct.
All right. So she hadn't had them in the last 6 months.
Correct.
This test also asks and inquires about intentionally hurting yourself or cutting.
In the last 6 months.
Right.
Is the prompt.
All right. In the last 6 months.
Correct.
Had Ms. Hurd previously indicated to you that she cut herself?
She indicated one time as a teenager in a reckless moment she did. It was stupid and I never did it again.
All right. So that was the first time you met her. She indicated that she had cut herself. What did you do to satisfy yourself that she didn't continue to engage in that behavior?
As with most things, I asked about the frequency of the behavior and had it ever occurred again. Had she ever engaged in suicidal behavior or suicidal gestures? That's part of that screen.
Where did Ms. Hurd cut herself?
I'd have to look at my notes to be sure.
All right. Why don't we do that? That's in your intake note, correct?
I don't recall.
What number is it? All right, why don't we go to PX 938? And if you'd put it up for the witness. All right, that's not it. Let's go to the next page.